Welcome to our program, dear brothers and sisters, where you will hear the raw truth. My name is George. I am your brother, and I love you. Before going on with the message of today, I remind all of our past listeners, viewers, and our new viewers that most of what you hear on this program is based upon my book, Dear Brothers and Sisters, Gender and Its Responsibility. All right, I thank you for that. Also, there is available to you at no cost our flyer, which says, are you a bull or are you hamburger meat? And on the other side, it says, American Women and the Harem Master. Two very interesting articles that have to do with the issues facing us today. We also have this little flyer here called The Raw Truth, which explains our program when we're on every other Sunday now at 10 p.m. every other Sunday, all right? And these are available free, which you can pass to your friends. All you have to do is call this number here, right? 874-7900, extension 1329. We also have videotapes and audio tapes of our programs. Last week, we discussed the need for a nation to have vision. And I made some suggestions as to near-term visions or goal which we could have. Tonight I'm going to discuss why we are not having visions, or the result of the effect on society of not having a vision. However, before we get into the subject for this evening, as is our custom, we list the 7 major issues affecting society. The number one issue is that we have the highest incarceration rate in the world. We have 1.5 million men living in prison. 1.5 million men in cages in this country. It's a national tragedy, and the bigger tragedy is that we're beginning to accept this, increasingly accept it. Number 2, we have 1 million youth, at least, living in street gangs. And they are a direct result of men in prison, because it's their fathers, for the most part, who are in prison. Number 3, our women are stressed out, severely stressed out, overworked, and apprehensive about their safety and the safety of their loved ones. Number 4, our educational system has become dysfunctional. High schools are holding pens where little more is learned than how to use condoms. Our colleges and universities give increasingly high grade point averages to students with lower and lower SAT scores. Very soon, all graduates will have an A, and no one will know anything. That's the direction that we are going. Even in the trade schools, this has come about. Crime is definitely not on the decrease. Statistically, it's said, oh, that crime is on the decrease. But the rate of crime for those who are normally in a crime-bearing age, I don't feel has changed. What we have witnessed was the greatest sweeping of the streets of young men and throwing them into prison in the history of this nation, and I wouldn't doubt in the history of most nations. In the last 4 to 5 years, we added 500,000 men to our prison population, most of them young men, all right? That's why there isn't any crime, or crime is lower, as they say, and everybody is taking credit for it. The police departments from the East Coast to the West Coast, the Million Man March, you name it, everybody's taking credit. There's no credit to be taken. 500,000 of our young men have been swept off the streets and thrown into prison. That's not progress. Our economy is stagnant at best, although I must say all indicators right now are that the economy is booming. I really hope that it continues, but it is my personal belief that the economy grows when there is new, N-E-W. And new comes from the creative will of the masculine gender and nowhere else. That's the only place that new comes from. Not from the colleges, not from the government, not from the banks. New comes from the creative will of the masculine gender. And we're living in a society that's stifling new. Through our education, through the laws, through everything that we're doing, we're stifling those who create new. And lastly, morality and ethics have disappeared from the media and from most activities in life. What we are concerned with now is what is legal, not what is moral and what is ethical. All of these 7 issues are caused by the diminishing of the masculine influence in society. But now let's get back to a nation with vision, or as Proverbs says, a nation without vision shall perish. And we are a nation without vision, and we are communities without vision. In fact, our young men are taught, go to school, learn something, and get a job, without ever telling anybody why. All right? What we are supposed to do is have visions and work for those visions. But in order to have visions, we have to be a nation that respects its elders, because the elders are the ones where the past visions came from. Now, to give you an example of the benefit of elders, 15 years ago, when I was in Atlanta, I heard on the radio the announcer describing a practice that was called toast sessions amongst the black community. And when young men got in trouble, as young men do, or hot under the collar, or they're going to beat this guy up, or they're going to get after them, or what have you, the elders would meet with these young men and have what was called a toast session and calm them down. However, with the advent of liberal legislation, with the advent of senior citizen homes, we took the elders out of society and left these young men without counsel. Oh, I guess we had social workers for a while, but the end result was they went to prison because they got in trouble. You see, there is no substitute for manhood, and there is no substitute for an elder, which is experienced manhood. So now that we are a nation that removes our elders from society and does not hold them up in any regard, right, we hear statements like this. And this, by the way, is a true statement at a lecture I gave at one of our universities, in which a young woman said to me, "Men are useless. We don't need them for anything. We don't even need them to get pregnant. They're just around when we want a good time." How's that for disrespect? Now you could say, well, that was just one woman speaking. No. Part of my job here last year in a church which I'm serving was administrative director of their drug rehab program. And I had a 42-year-old man who I was interviewing to be part of the program, a man who was trying to put his life together, and he said to me, "I'm tired of being told I am useless, that you don't need men anymore, that you don't even need them to get pregnant." So it just wasn't one woman speaking. Oh no. This is the prevalent thought. What do you need men for? We can do anything that men can do. And the reason for that, there is no current history, recent history, near-term history about what these men have done. And we take society and everything that we have for granted, like the leaves on a tree. Now we We don't thank anyone for the leaves on a tree because we say this is nature, or maybe God's work, or the grass growing, or the flowers blooming, or the vegetables growing. We don't respect anybody in particular for making that happen. We say it's nature. There's no reason to have respect for anybody for that. Although in my own estimation I feel we at least ought to respect the Lord for that. But there is no respect given. And the reason there is no respect given, nobody has been brought up as to what brought these things which are taken for granted into their lives. Think for a moment, let's take a typical day in the life of the average American. When that alarm rings and you wake up, that alarm was invented by a man. That wire from the alarm clock to the wall carries electricity. That electricity is being generated by steam turbines or hydroelectric power. That was developed by men. When you get out of bed and you walk into the bathroom and flick on the light switch, that light took Thomas Edison 10,000 tries to make. When you flush the toilet, that took the inventor, Mr. Crapper, that's where it got its name from, many attempts to make it work, and is one of the inventions that made it possible to put large numbers of people in cities. When you finish in the bathroom, if you didn't maybe take a shower and use a hair dryer, which is another invention, and you come back into your bedroom or kitchen and you flick on the radio, the person who invented that, Marconi, was considered insane by his friends for having an idea that voices could be projected through space without wires. We can go on and on through the entire day, and we'll see that everything that we take for granted came about through the imagination, diligence, perseverance, self-sacrifice of men. Self-sacrifice of men who lost all their money, who some of them died penniless, who lost their friends because of what they believed in, who were ridiculed, who were called crazy, foolish. Steamboat was Fulton's folly, buying Alaska was Seward's folly, Marconi was considered insane, and on we go, on we go. All the things that we take for granted, the computer chip, radar, sonar, the automobile, the airplane, all these things that we use on a daily basis, just in our minds we just assume or act as though it came there like the leaves on a tree. And the fact is, it came there through the blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, humiliation of men. So that's why we get the disrespect from women saying men are useless, because it hasn't even dawned on them, hasn't been taught to them how it came about, nor has it been taught the necessary ingredients in manhood that will foster the action to bring about these things, these new things, which now are commonplace, which has made our society what it is today. Which has made our society what it is today. The creative will of the masculine gender has made this society, these men who are called useless, who are not needed, made everything that we touch, from when we awaken in the morning until we go to bed at night. And they're called useless. By the way, with all the research that the women's lib organizations do about all the things that women can do, aren't you surprised that they're so quiet about inventiveness and where new comes from? The last 25 years, the number of engineering and science graduates has been higher amongst women than men. Have you heard of any inventions? Do you know how many women are seen at the patent office? Do you know how many patents are granted to women? Do you think it's 50-50? 60-40? 70-30? 80-20? 90-10? Not even close. Not even close. That's why they're so quiet about it. Because you see, inventiveness and all the things that you touch came from, still comes from, and will always come from men. So now we know what the women think about men. They're useless. Now what about their children? What about those young men who stand on the street corners today? Do they have any respect for what we call the elders? And by the way, let's talk for a moment about the elders. When Moses, was commanded by the Lord, to tell the Pharaoh to let his people go, the first thing Moses did, he got his brother Aaron, and they met with, do you know who? The elders of the children of Israel. The elders of the children of Israel. Okay? Not the scholars, not the rich men, not the priesthood, the elders of the children of Israel. That's who they met with. If we go to 1 Peter 5:5, it says, young men, submit yourselves to your elders. Okay? And in words to this effect, it follows, and wear the garments of humility and humbleness. For God does not shine his face kindly upon the arrogant. In the Quran, we find this statement in Al-Furqan. The servants of the merciful, meaning God, the servants of the merciful are those who walk humbly on the earth. I like that. That's a nice statement. The servants of the merciful are those who walk humbly on the earth. So here we have it in the Quran to be humble. We have it in the Bible to be humble. We have it in the Torah to be humble. But you have to be humble to those whom you respect, to an authority. And the authority that they're talking about are the elders. Those men who have come before and done it and lived it and succeeded, and who are here to tell those who are younger how to do it and bring society forward even more. But have our young men been told to respect their elders? First of all, the elders are swept off the streets. Just like the young men are swept off and thrown into prison, the elders are swept off and put into senior citizens housing. And we make it sound good. We make it sound good. We are raising a society of young men who don't see their fathers, who don't see their elders, who hardly see their mothers. And if, with all this negativity, they grow up and don't make it, so to speak, we throw them in prison. We're living in a society where they think laws in the state can replace manhood, and it can't be done. It cannot be done. But in any event, how can you respect your elders or respect any authority if you don't even know that it's an authority or that they're there? The airplane, the automobile, the telephone, the TV, the computer, as leaves upon a tree, with no thought as to those people who suffered to make all these things possible for us. And we say the thanks that we give to them is to say that they are useless. Oh, may God forgive the thinking of this nation. That they are useless. Everything that we touch from when we get up in the morning until we go to bed at night came from a man. Not from nature, not from God. It came from a man. Remember that. It came from a man, using the tools that God gave him, but it came from a man. As did all things, as did all religions, as did all the books. First, in the creation of this universe, after the planets and what have you, was the creation of man. The United States government didn't come first and then make us. We came and made it. And what we made, we will change. We are the power in this world and in this universe. We represent the masculine principle. We are God's messengers in this material world. We are not useless. All things, all, A-L-L, all things originate from us, but all. You know, the women's liberals say, well, the men wrote the books. That's right. We write the books. That's what we do. You got it. We write the books. Right? We set the standards. And the reason we're broader at the shoulders than at the hips is not to be donkeys in the labor force, but to enforce the standards which we set. Right? We make the rules and we enforce them. And when we don't, you have chaos and disrespect, which is where we are today. We have chaos and disrespect. No thought for our elders, no thought for any of our institutions, no thought for anyone except self-gratification. And it's promoted as a virtue. Do your own thing. My gosh, you go to any women's studies book counter and you'll find all kinds of books on do your own thing. Right? Relationships are for one purpose only, for personal growth. Okay. However, no talk about commitments, and no talk about the commitment of commitments, which is marriage, and no talk of your obligation to the race, to bring the race forward, and that the purpose of mating is to propagate the race and bring it forward morally, ethically, and spiritually. Oh, no, 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 no. No, we're so far from that, because people who believe in that and write about those things, you know, who wrote those books, they were the men, right? But we got them out of the way now. We got them in senior citizens' homes, got them in old age homes. We got them in prison. So, where there is no respect, there can be no humility, there can be no humbleness. Who are you going to be humble to? You got to be humble to that which you respect. So if there is nothing to respect, if there are no elders, if we all do our own thing, if we're all out for personal growth, how can we be humble? And my brothers and sisters, the only way in this world that you can learn anything is to be humble, because you open yourself up to the knowledge and experience of those that have it. To be arrogant cuts you off from the learning of all things. So there is no learning without humbleness and humility. And this learning in these self-help centers and adult education centers. That's not really learning. That's just stuff to help you live the more selfish life. Okay? Is that one? Two. The more selfish life. True knowledge comes from being humble, from absorbing that which is out there. So living in a society where we are humble to no one, we don't even do what's right or wrong. We only do what's legal and illegal. How can that kind of a society have a vision, have a purpose, have a goal? Remember we said last week, a nation is a grouping of diverse peoples with a common goal. A grouping of diverse peoples with a common goal. Well, we got half the package. We are a grouping of diverse peoples, but there is no common goal. It's a self-centered, individual, selfish, narcissistic society that we're living in, and it's breaking down. And the only way we can turn it around is to once again develop respect for our elders, and that comes for respect from our men. And when men are respected, women will be protected and children will be cared for. This is the normal way of society, and we cannot wiggle and slip around it. There is no other way. Let me hear from you, my brothers and sisters. Here's my phone number down here. We'll be lecturing soon in the neighborhood. We haven't found a place yet. Give a call. We have a lot of free literature to give to you. And in the interim, think of us. My thoughts are with you. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.